What's up guys, it's Nora and I am back to tell you guys about what it was like staying in the hospital and being admitted back in December. So disclaimer before you watch this video, if you don't like hearing about pooping or diarrhea or blood or just like gross medical things, this is not the video for you, so you might as well just click right out because you might be grossed out. Well, for those who don't know, I have ulcerative colitis, and every once in a while my colitis flares and I need to be put on meds or have medical treatment or intervention, and that is what happened last December, my 2 weeks before finals. So I was starting to go into a flare and I was kind of iffy, and I think it was from just like stress and finals and being busy, and I was on a daily, here comes hearing about poop, so like morning, I was pooping like 6 times a day. My stomach was really killing me at night and in the morning, and I was just dealing with it like any other person with UC does. We just deal with it. I was in contact for about probably 2 weeks back and forth with my doctor trying to figure out if I had an infection like C. diff, or I've had Campylobacter before, which is like E. coli's cousin, if it was really a flare, if it was like IBS, because it came on really quickly and it wasn't the characteristics of a typical flare for me. But my doctor and I think she was in clinical, because when she's in clinical she takes a bit longer to respond, so I was trying to get back and forth with her. They were trying to do tests. I'd done blood tests, I'd done stool tests, and things were just not getting back to her quick enough. Like the results weren't being sent back to her quick enough. So it was Monday, and like I said, I'd been pooping like 6 times a day. There was mucus, there was blood, typical IBS symptoms. My stomach was killing me, but I was like really trying hard just to get through it because I had finals coming up, and this was literally like the week before finals, and I had a bunch of lab exams, pretty much lab practicals that week that I needed to get done before my finals, because lab practicals are always a week before finals, so they're not just like all squished together. And it was Monday, and I got up and I was woken up needing to go to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom, came back. I tried to get through classes. I had to leave my classes. I typically don't have to get up in the middle of my classes to go to the bathroom, and that day I had. And by the time it was noon, I had pooped 10 times. Like on the dot, I'd counted, had pooped 10 times. So I emailed my doctor and I was like, listen, I was like, something's wrong. I've pooped almost like double what I am on a daily, what I have been doing. And I was like, at this point, like, I cannot function. I can't go to my classes. I'm stuck in the bathroom all day, and like, I'm just in agony. She was like, I think you should be admitted, because I was like, should I be admitted? Should I not? I've never been admitted, really. She was like, I think it'd be worthwhile. Called my mom, and I was like, Mom, we're going to the emergency room. So she dropped everything from school. She kind of had been messaging back and forth with me as I was messaging a doctor, and she was like, kind of knew that this was going to happen. So she came over, she got me, she brought me, and I ended up sitting, since I have a pediatric GI, but I'm technically 19, I kind of was like borderline, like, I don't know if I'm going into adult ER or peds ER, but since my doctor had told me to be admitted and she was a peds GI, they had me sit in the peds ER waiting room. I sat in the waiting room for 3 hours. I finally stopped going to the bathroom. It was great because the peds ER had a bathroom in it. It was like a small section off from all the like adults, sketchy adults. That was kind of nice that I kind of had a nicer waiting area than everyone else. But again, I had to wait 3 hours. It was really long. And finally, they took me back. I went into the peds ER and I sat on a bed and they examined me. I ended up with an ER doc that really didn't have a lot of experience with people with UC, and at the time I was going to the bathroom mainly in the morning right before bed, so I kind of had like a lull period of when they brought me in, and I probably got brought back by like 6 or 7 that night. So since I hadn't eaten anything, because I hadn't been eating anything since I was flaring, I kind of like wasn't going to the bathroom, so I didn't seem as sick, and I wasn't as nauseous as when I was going to the bathroom multiple times. But I told them, and I was like, I'm continuing to poop, I have complete diarrhea, and they were like, we don't know if we just like want to admit you or not, like we're not really sure. So I had to sit in a bed. They did blood. Apparently my blood looked fine, which doesn't make sense to me because if I'm flaring, my blood looks off. So I don't know if they just didn't take the same blood tests or ordered the same blood tests as my GI typically does when I go for blood. But anyway, and they were like, well, you have severe colitis, so technically this gives us terms to admit you, but we're not really sure. We want to make a plan. Apparently they were in contact with my GI. My GI was telling this doctor to admit me and that I needed to be admitted because I'd never been that sick since I was like literally diagnosed. And the ER doctor really didn't want to admit me, so he was kind of being like difficult about it and telling my mom and I that we weren't supposed to be admitted, even though she was literally like, you need to admit her, and if you don't, like, I'm gonna have a conniption. So finally he was like, well, you have severe colitis, so technically you fall under the category of admission, but we don't know who we should admit you under, if we should admit you under adult GI or peds GI. And I was like, well, my GI is peds. I'm in the peds ER. I was waiting in the peds waiting room. Put me on the peds floor. There's a specific peds floor in this hospital. I was like, just put me in peds. I'll be fine there. I'm 19. I fit all the children's equipment because I'm small. Just do that. So they were like, no, we don't really want to put you in peds because technically you're too old to be in peds, even though I was in the peds ER. So I had to wait for a few hours while adult GI and peds GI decided to fight over who would take me. So by this time, it was probably like 10 or 11, and they were like, well, admitting team has reviewed you, and you're either going to be admitted and you're going to be scoped, and then we're going to have a plan of treatment because we don't know how bad your colitis and inflammation is, or we're just going to send you home and you can go get like scoped another day and just go to your GI the next day. And I was like, listen, I have finals next week. You're going to scope me, or I'm not going to get scoped until after finals because I don't have time for this. And they're like, okay. And I was like, but do you have any other prep for the colonoscopies? Because I vomit them, like projectile vomit, like puke them up, like I can't hold them down. It's just the quantity, it's not even the taste. It's just when I'm sick and I'm not feeling well, my body wants me to vomit everything up. So they were like, well, since we're gonna try and admit you, we're only gonna agree to admit you if we can put an NG tube down your throat, pump the crap down that way to keep it down so you don't have to swallow it, and then we'll scope you. So I was like, fine, I've never had an NG tube. I know people have NG tubes and people deal with it, so I was like, hopefully it'll be fine, like I'll be able to do it. It'll be all dandy. Mind you, throughout this, I was also continuing to use the bathroom, and when midnight hit, my actual count for going to the bathroom was 20 times. Like 20 times in one day. That's like absolutely nuts. So I agreed to do the NG tube. They decided to admit me, but I was on a stretcher in the ER and there was no beds in the hospital. They're like, well, we could bring you up to radiology and do the NG tube. So that's what I figured was going to happen. But I didn't want to sleep because I knew it was going to be put like early in the morning when people first came in, so I probably knew it was probably going to go in like 5 or 6. Well, it turns out the peds ER nurse that came on at like 2 or 3, I think, decided that she wanted the NG tube in now. I don't know if the doctor was being a jerk to her and telling her she needed it in me, but she was like, we need to prep you for this colonoscopy, so we're putting the NG tube in now. So this girl just like charged into my room. Mind you, I still think I'm going to be sent upstairs to have this put in. And she's like, we're putting it in now. And I was like, great. So I had my mom leave because I didn't want my mom to watch. I don't know why. I just was like, I want to do this on my own. It's easier if I'm like tougher on myself if I do it alone. So typically when you put an NG tube in, I don't know this at the time, you're supposed to give the patients like some kind of like lidocaine breathing mask or like a lidocaine lollipop or a lidocaine spray down their throat so they don't feel it when it first goes in, so it's more comfortable for them and easier for like us to get used to. She didn't do any of this. She brought the NG tube in, and for those who don't know, an NG tube goes literally up your nose, down the back of your throat to your stomach. So she put the lube on the NG tube, and she was like, had another nurse there because then once they insert it into your stomach, they need to make sure it's in your stomach, so they like blow air bubbles into it and someone else listens to make sure that they can hear it in your stomach. So she shoves the NG tube up my nose and it gets to the back of my throat, and I was like, ooh, it feels like a really bad rug burn. It's the only way I can explain it. It's just like complete excruciating rug burn in your nose. So she got back to my throat and she was like, okay, start sipping on water so that when you sip on water, it closes the little flap to your trachea so that will go down your esophagus and not into your lungs. Well, it didn't go right for me. and she ended up putting the whole thing in my lungs. She like fed the whole thing in and I didn't feel it, and she was like, where do you feel it? And I was like, what do you mean I don't feel it? And she was like, you don't feel it? And I was like, no. She ripped it halfway out up to my nose again, and I was like sitting there like and then she decided to try again. So that's when I finally felt it go down the back of my throat and down to my stomach, and I was like, take it out, because I kind of just like freaked in the moment, and I probably should have just had her leave it in, but she decided, oh, I'll take it out and I'll just try it on the other side after she had aspirated my lungs. So she tried it on the other side, because she said when she tried it again after she had completely taken it out fully, that like the third time she was getting an obstruction. So she tried it on this side, she got it down. It was like excruciating, and I couldn't deal with it, and I couldn't cough or speak or like do anything or breathe without gagging. And if you gag it and you kink it in your throat, it has to be ripped out again and put back down. I know that for a fact. So I kept gagging, and I was just like, take it out, take it out. I was like, I'd rather be discharged and vomiting than have this thing in the back of my throat, because it's not like a home NG tube that's like thin and flimsy. It's like a big hospital one, and I just couldn't deal with it. So she was kind of being difficult. I was like, I'm not taking it out more, and I was like, take it out. And I was like, she was like, the only way this thing is coming out is if you literally take it out yourself. And I was like, take it out, because I don't want to be that patient that like has in their document like ripped NG tube out, because then that makes me look like a jerk. So she finally, like after me begging her multiple times, ripped the NG tube out. Just kind of not like slammed it, but like angrily forcefully put it on the counter, and then stormed out of my room. Mind you, I've been at the hospital for about 12 hours, and I'm still on a stretcher, and it's 3 a.m. When my mom came back, my GI doc's like another doctor who's on her team who's younger. I'm gonna call him like a junior doctor, even though it's not a thing. He came in and he was like, well, we need you to do the colonoscopy, so we need you to drink stuff. So I was like, fine. So I drank the prep. It was miserable. I was stuck in the PEDS continuously throughout the day. My mom went home to like grab some stuff. I was still drinking this junk. I was sleeping in between. I was so like sleep deprived that I was like ready to hallucinate. I had been started on prednisone because that was our agreement from the ER doc from the night before, because he didn't want to give me budesonide, which is more like, it's like prednisone but for GI patients, and it doesn't give you like the bad side effects like the moon face or the insomnia or whatever. But he was like, I haven't given that to patients. I've only really given prednisone. So, like, in his terms, even though it could have been better for me, he didn't want to give it to me because he hadn't given it. So I was like, fine. So that was our agreement to being admitted. So I'd been started on prednisone and Tylenol, and I was more comfortable, but I was still drinking this Go Lightly stuff and wanting to puke every single minute of the day. I was still pooping a bajillion times, going back and forth to the different bathrooms in the PEDS ER throughout the day. And I was like trying to get a bed. Mind you, there was not one bed in this hospital. So they were like, maybe we could get a bed down in the PEDS ER if we can't get you a room on a different floor. They couldn't even get a bed. Like, that's how busy this hospital was. So I was stuck on a stretcher. Stretchers are not comfortable. They're not meant to be comfortable. They're meant for just people to be stable on. I was on like the top of the list by like 3 that afternoon, but I kept getting knocked because critical patients kept coming in and they needed a spot in a room to be admitted to. So my bed kept going, but finally, like 4 or 5, they were like, we got a room for you. So they got me a room. I ended up being on the med-surg floor, even though the only beds available in the hospital were on the PEDS floor, and they refused to put me up there because I was too old. Yet I was in the PEDS ER and I had PEDS GI, and they still were fighting over me as to whose GI I really belonged to, adult or PEDS. So I was not put on the PEDS floor, even though they could have put me up there because there were beds open again. They decided to put me on a med-surg floor. So I get up to med-surg, and it was like 7 or 8. I wasn't allowed to eat because I was on colonoscopy prep. I pretty much hadn't eaten anyway because I just wasn't hungry, and every single time I would eat, it would make me sick to my stomach. My mom got back around like 11, and my roommate, because this hospital has double rooms, was having a nice little reaction to some meds. I don't want to say she was hallucinating, but she was just like straight up out of her mind. I thought she was like batshit crazy old lady. She wasn't, turns out. But she was on Betalarm because she was on a drug that makes you really loopy and like a really high fall risk. But that was reacting with another drug that she had been given. Every time she like kept trying to get out of bed because she kept saying she was uncomfortable. like every 5 minutes she would get out of bed and the bed alarm would go off, and then everyone on that floor would have to like rush in and like put her back in bed and be like, don't get up again, we're gonna make you comfortable. And then when she wasn't getting up and causing the bed alarm to go off, she would turn over and kink her IV pole. So then her IV pole machine would start going off. So the whole night this lady's like beeping, and I keep seeing her like feet swing over the bed, and I'm sitting there going, don't get up, and she's getting up, and it was just like I couldn't get any sleep. And they at this time had given me Zoloft because I typically take Zoloft, but my body decided to be allergic to it. So once I took the Zoloft, it chemically burnt my whole mouth down to my esophagus to the point where like I couldn't like talk. It hurt to talk, and it literally like felt like someone had put like a match down my esophagus. And I had the other GI docs come in, and the like RNs didn't know what to do, and they were all like looking at me, and I was like crying. I was like, it hurts, like it just hurts, like I'm so miserable. Besides the fact that I'm still like pooping every 10 minutes from this Go Lightly prep. And finally I ended up actually puking up because my stomach like couldn't take having this pill that literally chemically burnt it. I eventually ended up puking up, and it was like almost immediate relief. I still had some I obviously still had inflammation in my esophagus. It doesn't just like immediately go away. So I was given Tylenol, and I got a little bit of sleep that night. But then the next morning, I was like first in line for colonoscopy. I wouldn't have stayed the whole day if they could have gotten me into colonoscopy quicker, but I had a colonoscopy endoscopy. They saw that my whole colon was pretty much inflamed, and they took biopsies too. And after that, I got released because they knew they wanted me to be put on prednisone. Like that was their plan of action for discharge. And they knew that I needed to be on a different maintenance bed now since 6-MP previously did not work. So which is why they switched me to azathioprine, and that didn't end up working, so now I'm on Remicade. So if you guys want to check out the other video that I'm going to be posting about being on Remicade and trying it and how I kind of got to that level of medication, I guess you could say, then head on over there. And I hope you guys enjoyed my little hospital stay summary, because it wasn't a great time for me, but the nurses were very kind, the staff were very kind, and it overall needed to happen. I was able to make up my lab practicals that week for school, and I did make it to finals. I skipped like the rest of that week, so I was hospitalized from Monday to Wednesday night, and then I had finals on Monday, but I had all my materials and things, so I was all set for that. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.